Namaste. Welcome to Indian Knowledge Systems Primer Course for Children. In this session, we will look at Saptadhatu. The Dhatu definition goes like Dha in Sanskrit means holding, placing, containing, or causing. Dhatu means tissues that can hold the organs together. They form the constructing material of the body. The human body is made up of 7 such bodily tissues according to Ayurveda. These 7 tissues have unique function and qualities and they form the Saptadhatu framework. Understanding the Saptadhatu is very essential for an Ayurvedic practitioner to understand and make diagnosis and treatment of diseases. Let us now try to understand what are all these 7 Saptadhatus. Let us now see what these 7 dhatus are. The first one is called the Rasa Dhatu. It can be roughly translated in English to plasma. Second is the Rakta Dhatu, which is called blood. Third is Mamsa Dhatu, those tissues that are related to muscle and flesh. Fourth is Meda Dhatu. Fat tissue is called as Meda Dhatu. Fifth is Asti Dhatu. Bones and cartilages form Asthi Dhatu. Sixth is Majja Dhatu. Bone marrow and nerve tissues are called as Majja Dhatu. And the last is Shukra Dhatu. All the reproductive tissue is called as Shukra Dhatu. If you see here, it's a pictorial representation of all the 7 dhatus. Let us now quickly try to recollect what are all the Sapta Dhatus. Rasa Dhatu, which is plasma, Rakta Dhatu, that is blood tissue, Mamsa Dhatu, which is muscle tissue, Meda Dhatu, which is adipose tissue, Asti Dhatu, which is bone tissue, Majja Dhatu, which is bone marrow and nerve tissue, and the 7th is Shukra Dhatu, which is the reproductive tissue. Let us now slowly try to understand how the Sapta Dhatus are created, what are all their qualities, and what effect do digestion have on them. The digestive processes involves breakdown of the food in the stomach, the small intestine, and at last in the colon. It is controlled by 2 digestive fires, the Jhataragni and the Bhutagni. The quality of the body tissues is affected by various factors such as the digestive capacity, the quantity of digestion, the quality of digestion, the structure and function of each dhatu as well. So, if you look at here, this is a pictorial representation of the digestive process. This is the stomach when it's empty, and slowly when it gets filled with food, how does the stomach go on to become empty later? The nourishment of the body tissues happens in stages, one by one. The nourishment of each dhatu is controlled by its own dhatu agni, otherwise called as digestive fire. Let's now try to understand what is the role of agni here. Agni tattva, we have seen, is very transformative. Hence, the process of assimilation is assisted by the agni tattva. That is why Jhataragni, which is present in the stomach, helps in breaking down the food and assimilating the food into this body so that this body gets nourished. Hence, similarly, we can see each of these dhatus, they have dhatu agni. Their respective dhatu agni functions and helps in such assimilation processes so that nourishment of that particular dhatu can happen. For proper functioning of the dhatu, its respective dhatu agni should be strong. The bhala of the agni should be high. If one dhatu agni gets affected, it may impact the others, but the order may not be necessarily same. Let's now delve deeper into understanding what is Rasa Dhatu. What is the meaning of Rasa Dhatu? What is it called in English? We saw Rasa Dhatu is called as plasma. The first of the 7 tissues is Rasadhatu. Rasadhatu is the nutrient plasma responsible for nourishing, supporting the growth of all the other tissues. What does that mean? Rasadhatu forms the basis of nourishment of all the other 6 bodily tissues that come after that. It is formed from the digestive food absorbed by the small intestine and processed in the liver. This is a very important point, because if you see, the Rasadhatu gets nourished, or the Rasadhatu rather is formed through the absorption of the digested food in the small intestine and in the liver. The quality of the Rasadhatu is definitely now can be understood to be determined by the food quality and the body's ability to digest and assimilate it. So, the process of digestion, if it is effective, then Rasadhatu will also have a good quality. What are all the attributes or other qualities of Rasadhatu? Rasadhatu is sweet, cool and unctuous. It maintains the moisture and lubrication. It nourishes the skin, hair and nails. It provides the base of nourishment for all of the bodily tissues. It also supports the immune system. So, what happens if there is an imbalance in any of these dhatus? How do we treat it? Let's understand. Rasadhatu imbalances can lead to, we earlier saw a good quality of the Rasadhatu will enable lot of moisturizing and nourishment of the skin. Hence, any imbalance in the Rasadhatu can be understood to cause dryness in the skin. Since the water content also sort of gets reduced, it will cause a lot of constipation, fatigue, weak immunity and a tendency towards infection. So, these are all the imbalances that gets created because of Rasadhatu. So, these are all the symptoms or diseases that can happen and manifest because of an imbalance in the Rasadhatu. Treatment involves dietary changes, herbal remedies and lifestyle modifications. So, what happens if there is a healthy Rasadhatu? It leads to good digestion, strong immunity and youthful appearance. Moving on to the second dhatu in the Saptadhatu framework is the Rakta dhatu, which is the blood tissue. We can understand that it transports the nutrients and removes the waste. It is formed from the digestive food transformed into plasma and then to blood. We saw Rasadhatu was after the assimilation of digested food. Raktadhatu is after the assimilated food that gets transformed into plasma and then into blood. The quality is determined by definitely the food and the digestion. So, what are all the characteristics of Raktadhatu? Raktadhatu is hot, sharp and liquidy. It maintains the temperature, skin color and nourishment. So, if the Rakta Dhatu is not well nourished, then the skin will become very pale. It will lose its luster. Now, we will see what are all the symptoms of imbalances in Rakta Dhatu and how to treat them. Imbalance in Rakta Dhatu leads to anemia. What is a characteristic symptom of somebody who is suffering from anemia? We know that pale skin is one of a very critical attribute. So, imbalance in Rakta Dhatu leads to anemia, skin and bleeding disorders and inflammation. Treatment will involve diet, herbs and lifestyle changes. Whereas a healthy Rakta Dhatu results in strong immune system like that of the Rasadhatu and a good circulation and healthy complexion. This is an illustration that shows the circulatory system in the male and female gender. So, one can understand if the Rakta Dhatu is very healthy, the circulatory mechanism functions at its best. It is very vital for the overall health and well-being of an individual. Let's now move on to the third dhatu, which is the Mamsa Dhatu, otherwise called as the muscle tissue. Mamsa Dhatu provides the body with strength, stability and support. This is an illustration of Mamsadhatu. It plays a crucial role in body movement, digestion and respiratory function. Primary location of Mamsadhatu is in the muscles of the body. It is composed of muscle fibers that are held together by the connective tissue. So now let's try to understand what happens if Mamsadhatu gets imbalanced and how do we go about treating them. Imbalances of Mamsadhatu leads to muscle weakness, fatigue and poor digestion. Maintaining a healthy Mamsadhatu requires balanced diet and regular physical activity. Ayurvedic herbs such as ashwagandha, guggulu can support muscle strength and endurance. Mamsadhatu is essential for overall health and can be maintained with the well-balanced lifestyle and the use of Ayurvedic remedies. Moving on to the fourth among the Saptadhatu, the Asthidhatu or the bone tissue. Asthidhatu provides support and structure to the body. Formed from the nutrients in food digested and transported to the bones. It's formed from there. The quality depends on the food quality and the body's ability to assimilate it. Some characteristic feature of Asthidhatu are it is hard, heavy and stable. It maintains the body structure and supports the organs. Imbalances of Asthidhatu. What happens if the Asthidhatu is not of a good quality? That means bones are supposed to be hard and dense. If the density goes off, if they become porous, it causes osteoporosis. It leads to fracture of joints. It leads to joint pain and weaknesses. Hence, imbalance in Asthidhatu causes these ailments. The treatment will involve dietary changes, herbal remedies and lifestyle modification. Healthy Asthidhatu will lead to strong bones, a good posture and a healthy skeletal system. Ayurveda emphasizes healthy diet, exercise and rest to support Asthidhatu production and prevent imbalances. Asthidhatu is essential for overall health and well-being and maintenance of the skeletal system. Moving on to the fifth dhatu, which is the Majja dhatu or the bone, marrow and the nervous tissue. Majja dhatu produces blood cells and supports the nervous system. The primary location is inside the bones, especially in long bones and in the vertebrae. So this is an example of the nervous system. It's given here as an illustration because Majja dhatu includes the nervous tissue as well. Imbalances of Majja dhatu causes anemia, osteoporosis and nervous system disorders. A balanced diet with nutrients like iron, vitamin B12 and calcium are important for enhancing the bala of Majja dhatu. Ayurvedic remedies such as ashwagandha and brahmi can support the nervous system. You all know what is brahmi? Brahmi is that small green leafy vegetable which looks very similar to a human brain. So one more herbal remedy that can help the digestive health is that of Triphala. Triphala is given here. So these three herbs joined together form Triphala. Healthy Majja dhatu is achieved through balanced diet, physical activity and Ayurvedic remedies. We have seen ashwagandha and brahmi as Ayurvedic remedies to enhance and avoid imbalance of Majja dhatu. Moving on to the sixth dhatu, which is the Medha dhatu. Medha dhatu provides for insulation. What is Medha dhatu? It is the adipose tissue. That thick fat layer you find it under your skin. So Medha dhatu provides for insulation. It stores the energy and protects the organ. The primary location is that of subcutaneous. Subcutaneous meaning below the skin. Subcutaneous adipose tissue and around the organs. That's how it provides for insulation for the organs. It's like having a thick layer of sponge around something that is very fragile. Imbalances in Meda Dhatu causes a lot of health problems such as obesity, because adipose tissue, you can understand, if there is an imbalance or excess of adipose tissue, obesity is a evident disorder that will come up. Next is diabetes and heart diseases. So balanced diet, low in saturated fats and high in fiber, protein and carbs are needed to avoid imbalance of Meda Dhatu. Regular physical activity is definitely essential for healthy Meda Dhatu. Ayurvedic remedies such as Guggulu and Triphala help in managing the weight and digestion. Healthy Meda Dhatu can be achieved with diet, exercise and Ayurvedic remedies. Let us now move on to the last of the Saptadhatus, which is the Shukra Dhatu. It is called as the reproductive tissue. Shukra Dhatu is the final and most refined among the bodily tissues and is responsible for production of reproductive liquid. It requires healthy functioning of all organs and tissues for its formation. Shukra Dhatu is cool, smooth and unctuous. It is very vital for optimal reproductive system functioning. Let us try to understand what happens if there is an imbalance in the Shukra Dhatu and how do we treat it. Imbalance of the Shukra Dhatu causes infertility, impotence and certain dysfunctions in the reproductive organs. Treatment will involve dietary changes, herbal remedies and lifestyle modifications. These treatments will also include nutrient-rich foods, regular exercise, stress management and adequate rest and sleep. Shukra Dhatu's health and vitality are essential for maintaining the overall health and well-being of an individual, especially for reproduction. So, we have seen the Saptadhatu framework. We have understood what is a dhatu and what are all the Saptadhatus that Ayurveda talks about. What are all their qualities and functions? How are they formed? What happens if there is an imbalance? How do we go on about treating them? What are all the treatment modalities that we use? Is it just lifestyle modification or are we also use herbal remedies and the like? Now, let's also talk about Dhatu Mala, which is waste products that are getting created at each of these Dhatu levels according to Ayurveda. Dhatu Mala refers to waste products generated during the metabolic process of the body. Regular examination of Dhatu Mala is very crucial to maintain optimal health. So one can easily understand, if you consider the process of digestion, we also talk at the end there is an excretion or an evacuation process. So there the waste gets collected and is removed from the body. Similarly, even when bodily tissues called dhatus are formed using their own respective dhatu agni, they also generate dhatu mala at each of those levels. Let's try to understand what are all the sapta dhatus and their respective Saptadhatu Mala. So on the left you can see is the list of the Saptadhatu and their respective Malas on the right. Rasadhatu or the plasma leaves Kapha or phlegm as the Mala, while Raktadhatu, the Mala is that of Pitta, the bile. Bile juice is excess secretion of bile is the Mala of Raktadhatu. The muscle tissue or Mamsa Dhatu will have earwax, eye discharges, nasal discharges, oral discharges, sebum and smegma. In Sanskrit, these are referred to as Karnamala, Netramala, Nasamala, Asyamala, Romakupamala, Prajananamala. The Meda Dhatu, which is the fourth among the Sapta Dhatus, which also refers to the fat tissues, leaves sweat or sweda as the mala. Asthi Dhatu has Roma, the body hair, and Nakha, the nails, as the Mala. Majjadhatu, the marrow tissue, has Charmasniha, sebaceous secretion, Netra with thick discharges and secretion from the eyes, and Purishasneha, fecal mucus. All of these are the malas that are from Majjadhatu. Shukradhatu or the reproductive fluids leaves no mala. As we have seen earlier, it is the finest and the refined form of all the dhatus. All the above dhatus have to be completely nourished for Shukradhatu to be nourished as well. Thus, we have seen how Saptadhatu framework is quite robust in understanding the bodily tissues that exist, their functions and qualities. What can happen if there is an imbalance? How do we go on about intuitively understanding the imbalance and administering an appropriate treatment? Thus, in this session, we have seen the Saptadhatu framework prescribed in Ayurveda, which talks about the 7 different bodily tissues that holds the structure in the body. Thank you.